Spectrum, written by Taya Van Dyke.
The shirt was scratchy. Maybe that wasn't the first thing Noah was supposed to notice in a situation like this, but despite his best efforts, it was. It made him wonder what that really said about him as he took the poster board sign his dad handed him. He looked down at the drab white t-shirt and ran his thumb over the plasticky bright red lettering, feeling an odd pull in his gut as he read the words. He did his best to ignore it. What else did it say about him that he kept straining to catch a glimpse of the yelling, laughing crowd in the distance, between the sets of tensed shoulders that stood between him and them? He told himself that it was his first time, and it didn't mean anything to want to look at the huge, colorful crowd waving all kinds of flags and banners and streamers as they passed by. But then again, neither of his brothers looked as interested in the parade as they shrugged on their own identical white t-shirts. He tried not to think about it. Noah fidgeted nervously as the small group milled around silently, each person wearing a similar expression of grimness and bad temper as they passed around homemade signs, each one painted with crude black or red lettering, black, white, and red. No other color was permitted in anyone's ensemble. That was the point, he supposed. They certainly didn't want to look like those other people. He snuck another glance in the parade's direction. "No!" He flinched as his dad snapped him out of his private thoughts. Noah quickly tore his gaze away from the other crowd and made his way over. His father watched him with hard, slightly narrowed eyes as he slunk his way over. "This is no place to slouch," his father chastised, eyeing his son's posture as it quickly straightened in response. "We are delivering an important message. His message. We need to give it with the confidence we feel in our hearts." Noah nodded quickly, putting as much enthusiasm into the gesture as he could muster. His father was right, of course. He was always right. So why did those words twist his stomach into such knots? "Sorry, Dad, I think I'm just a little nervous." He looked up cautiously at him, searching his face for any type of reaction. His dad blinked silently at him for a moment before he turned his head away as he pulled several more signs from the trunk. "Doing his work can be difficult sometimes. His messengers are not always given kindness by the ones who reject him." Noah looked away. "But we must remain strong, and resolve must never falter." Noah nodded dully as his father glanced back at him. "Right." The noises only grew louder and more bombastic as they drew up to the parade. As he strained to look, he began to see the faces of the people who passed by. Painted faces, and laughing faces, and screaming faces, and cheering faces, all walking in, well, not quite in line. More like in a huge moving mass of semi-organized disorganization. Yet still, they gave a peculiar illusion of oneness in their chaos. All the colors were almost hypnotizing. But the illusion was somewhat broken as the men next to him started shouting, angry, sneering shouts of flinged insults. As one or two started to shout, the others started as well, and soon Noah found himself in the midst of a wall of screaming and anger. Noah fought down the overwhelming desire to shrink away as heads began turning in their direction. All those painted heads and cheering heads blinked at their small group, glee turning almost immediately to anger and disgust. Noah clutched the sign in his hands until his knuckles turned white, as answering shouts of anger began to rise from the parade. Noah tried to ignore the feeling of a growing mass in his throat as he joined in slowly to one of the chants the others around him had picked up. The words felt hard and bitter in his mouth as he spat them out like poison. He couldn't explain it, couldn't comprehend the storm of emotions battling for dominance in his stomach. It was as if the words were poisoning him with every utterance, but he could not stop. The words kept coming and coming. He could feel the churning ball of hate and loathing grow in him, and as hard as he tried to spit it out, to direct it at the people before him, it kept turning inwards, deeper and deeper, striking out at him, hurting him. If he could just stop it, just get rid of it, these dark, twisted feelings of self-hatred, he just wanted it to stop. "Excuse me," Noah started at the quiet voice next to him. It was strange. Despite all the yelling and noise around him, it was this voice that seemed the most piercing. Noah turned and looked at the man who had suddenly appeared next to him. There was nothing immediately remarkable about him. He sported a mop of brown hair that managed to look wildly curly despite its short length, a deep blue leather jacket with 6 dull golden buttons running down its length, and a brown satchel slung over his right shoulder. However, what struck Noah about him were his shocking, piercing blue eyes. It was less the color and more the depth within them that captivated him. The man gave him a small, tired smile that held within it something of an edge as he looked at him. Noah could do nothing but blink back. The man swept his gaze over him, pausing briefly over the words emblazoned on his shirt before looking him again in the eyes. Noah suppressed the urge to look away. "I'm sorry. You see, I think I took a wrong turn, and suddenly I was here. Where is here, exactly?" Noah stared at the man, letting his sign fall as he stood there in confusion. He managed. The man looked across the mass of people out in the street. "It's all quite colorful, isn't it?" His face lit up with curiosity and delight as he gazed out. Noah struggled to think of something to say as he followed the man's gaze back to the crowd. As they walked past, several people hissed and booed in his direction, the boos beginning to drown out the rest of the shouts and cheers. Noah's face hardened as he looked away abruptly. "Well, they've stolen it, you know," he snapped as the man looked back at him with interest. "Oh?" he prompted quietly. "Yeah," Noah went on, as his father's familiar words drifted into his mind. "They're thieves. They stole the rainbow from him for their own purposes. It's twisted." He felt that sick internal feeling rise again, but bit it back. The man tilted his head to the side, looking absurdly like a curious puppy. "Him?" Yeah, Noah faltered again, stuffing his hands nervously into his pockets. "You know, him." The man continued to just look at him. "There are a lot of hims out there." He glanced again out at the parade as a particularly large float glided past. "A lot of hers, too, not to mention all the thems." What? Noah stuttered as his face turned a deep flushed red. Panic began to claw up his throat, and he found it suddenly extremely hard to breathe. And then the man smiled at him again, this smile somehow seeming more genuine, a softness he had not seen before underneath the layer of quiet sadness. "I've been called a thief before, you know," he said idly. "Although I've never stolen a rainbow before, I don't think. No, that coat was strictly a gift." Noah felt his confusion intensify. The man spoke nonsense with such confidence he very nearly believed him. "And I'm not so bad, am I?" the man continued. Noah considered this for a moment. "Yeah, but you're not like them," he corrected quickly. The man's gaze turned sharp. "Am I not?" Well, no," Noah stuttered. "I mean, look at them." He lashed out his hand, indicating a woman joyously waving a blue, pink, and white trans flag high in the air. "You're a normal guy, aren't you?" He looked back at her happy face with an odd feeling. "That's wrong." The man's face hardened. "No, I'm not," he responded immediately. "What?" "I'm not a guy." Noah stared at him. "Then, what, you're a girl?" The person shook his head. "Not really that, either." Noah sat in shock, his mouth slightly agape. He was at a complete loss of words. As he stood there, he felt a well of remarks spring into his mind, the ones his father would be spouting. He knew he should be saying them, too, and yet, as he stared at the person before him, he somehow couldn't bring himself to utter them. He opened his mouth as if to try, and nothing came out. The person flashed him another brilliant yet sad smile, and he was gone. Noah blinked at the spot where he had disappeared into the crowd, standing there in complete silence, feeling somehow as if he had been visited by an intensely spiritual presence. The screams and shouts and anger continued all around him, a maelstrom of fury and malice, and still, he could not bring himself to move. "Doctor! Tanya Bell shouted as the Time Lord materialized from the mass of celebrators. "Where did you get to?" "Yeah!" Liv chipped in, trying to wave her flag while simultaneously eating a hot dog. "We thought you'd wandered off on one of your solo adventures." The doctor wrinkled his nose playfully. "Me? Never." Tanya let out a guffaw as she leaned closer to her girlfriend, wrapping them both in her blue, pink, and white flag affectionately. "Yeah, don't you know, Liv? The doctor never wanders off." The two snorted in amusement. "Probably got distracted by something shiny," Liv teased. The doctor gave her a little nudge. "Something shiny?" He cast his gaze around at the glittering, colorful, sparkling mass. "Can't imagine that." "Seriously, though, where did you get off to?" Tanya questioned. The doctor shrugged. "Oh, just thought I'd go off the beaten track a bit." "Well, you picked a good moment." Tanya sobered. "Did you see those bigots? As if we don't have enough of them every day, they have to come here." The doctor gave her an odd look before shrugging again. "I must have missed them." Liv's smile fell. "It's really sad," she spat. "What they do, how they hurt people." The doctor nodded. "Yes, it is." For a moment, the three walked in silence. That was until Tanya spotted a friend in the crowd and rushed them enthusiastically over to introduce them. Until Liv found an unused rainbow sticker in her pocket and chased the doctor around with it, determined to spruce up his attire. Until the doctor squawked how the glue stained his coat, even as he puffed out his chest to display it proudly. And until the color and the warmth and the joyousness of the day washed it all from their minds, replaced with the wondrous experience of existing together in joy and pride.
Spectrum was a Spectral Horizons production, written and edited by Taya Dyke. Narrated by Brian Corrigan, with music composed by Alex Rooney. Happy Pride Month, everybody.